Random House Audio presents The Diet Fix: Why Diets Fail and How to Make Yours Work. This is the author, Dr. Yoni Freedhoff. For the four wonderful women in my life, Stacy, Talia, Leah, and Yael. Preface. Whether it was Rita Mae Brown or Albert Einstein who first said it, the quote, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results," might just as well have been written to describe society's past few hundred years of weight loss efforts. From the famous milk cure of the early 1800s, when dieters traveled deep into the Swiss Alps for the privilege of being assigned their own personal cow, whose freshly milked udders provided their sole source of sustenance for 7 to 14 days, to William Banting's blockbuster 1864 bestseller Letter on Corpulence, to the 1970s 700-calorie Scarsdale diet, grapefruit diets, and cabbage soup diets, there's certainly not been any shortage of traumatic diets over the years. The modern day isn't much different. For every ridiculous diet that falls out of favor, a new ridiculous diet is born. While all of these diets have markedly different methods of calorie control, they all share a common theme. In order to lose weight, you have to suffer. There's an underlying belief that success resides in white-knuckle willpower, in undereating, overexercising, and somehow learning to like it. These ideas are echoed not just by individuals, but by the media, the entertainment industry, and even our public health officials and allied health professionals. So do any dieters succeed in not just losing, but in actually keeping it off? A recent poll revealed that of the 2/3 of us who have medically significant amounts of weight to lose, nearly 60% have tried more than 6 times to lose weight. Of those who've tried more than 6 times, 34% report having tried more than 20 times. And 66% of those report they've tried so many times they've lost count. What is it about how we're dieting that leads us, seemingly regardless of our chosen dietary approaches, to keep failing? Sure, you can point to various diets that have helped you lose weight, but why hasn't any diet been shown to help people uniformly keep it off? You might think that after literally centuries of different diets, at least 1 or 2 of them would have hit that mark. How is it possible that so many divergent approaches to dieting could fail so many people? From low-fat to low-carb, and from macrobiotic vegan to paleo, you'd think that given the incredible variety of approaches, if there were such a thing as the right diet, or the best diet, one of them would have led not only to significant losses, but also to their lifelong maintenance. Truly, success with dieting must be measured by a diet's ability to help dieters keep their weight off, and not by simply the losing. But what if it's not the foods involved in the diets themselves that is tripping dieters up? Could there be some underlying collective feature that, despite their incredibly different recommendations, ties low-fat to low-carb, Ornish to Atkins? Some shared narrative that leads even those who successfully lose a great deal of weight on any given diet plan to abandon their efforts and eventually find themselves right back where they started, or worse yet, having gained back more than they'd lost in the first place. Those were the questions nagging at me back in 2001 when I began my medical career as a physician with a traditional family practice in Canada's capital. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 70% of my patients had overweight or obesity, and a great many of them wanted to lose. With North America's $60 billion commercial weight loss industry, they had no shortage of diets or weight loss programs to consider, and they'd often ask me which diet or program they should try. Unfortunately, I had no wise answers. The thing is, medical schools and residencies don't adequately train doctors to provide thorough, helpful, and actionable advice regarding weight management or nutrition. That's a strange thing, too, as diet and weight-related diseases have taken over from smoking as our #1 preventable causes of death. And we doctors, well, death's the primary thing we're supposed to be trying to at least delay. Given the myriad of medical conditions relatable to weight, the impact of weight on chronic disease, longevity, and quality of life, and the vast number of people asking me what to do, I realized that I had an obligation to my patients to try to understand weight management well enough to provide them with some useful, actionable advice. So despite having already spent more of my life in school than out, and thinking that my days of hardcore learning and studying were over, I embarked upon another chapter of education: obesity medicine. I was absolutely amazed at what I found, and it was immediately apparent that weight was an incredibly complicated characteristic. From a survival standpoint, weight is life. Up until very recently, evolutionarily speaking, we've had to survive in the face of extreme dietary insecurities. You couldn't just buy sandwiches at your local gas station, and there was no phone number to call to have a pizza delivered. So when there were times of plenty, our bodies stored calories as fat for the floods, winters, and droughts that plagued our less food-secure past, when eating was anything but a certainty. Consequently, aside from breathing, eating is our most important survival skill. And perhaps not surprisingly, after hundreds of millions of years of evolution, our bodies are finely tuned to ensure that we do survive. From hormones to gut peptides, our physiology actively protects us against ice ages and famines that in the grand scheme of time and genes occurred only moments ago, by generating hunger and priming our brain's reward centers to seek out food, much in the same way drug addicts' brains prime them to seek out their drug of choice. So it should not be a surprise that, in a sense, when faced with a situation where weight is lost, like for instance when someone goes on a diet, evolution fights back, whereby our bodies are patently designed to try to preserve our remaining energy stores, our fat, making weight loss more difficult and weight gain that much easier. What struck me too was the incredible variety of approaches to weight loss reported in the medical literature. While every approach had its own success stories, every approach also had its fair share of scientific opponents. From a practical and functional perspective, there truly didn't seem to be any best diet or best approach. Every approach saw at least some success. But sadly, regardless of how their weight was lost, for the majority, its regain was almost inevitable. But there was one group who didn't regain, the group in the National Weight Control Registry. Now, this wasn't a particular diet program. There were no registry weight loss centers in suburban strip malls, and no best-selling book backing them up. The registry was something akin to a club, where the sole requirement for membership was having maintained the loss of a significant amount of weight, regardless of how that weight was lost in the first place. Established in 1994 by Brown University School of Medicine's Rena Wing and University of Colorado's Jim Hill, the registry tracks individuals who've maintained a 30 or more pound weight loss for 1 or more years. Currently, there are over 10,000 registrants, the average of who has lost 67 pounds and kept them off for 5.5 years. Clearly, these people are amazingly good at what they do, and they also serve as living, breathing testaments to the fact that keeping the weight off is doable. What's truly fascinating is that while the registrants use dozens of different approaches to lose their weight, they share a great many similarities in keeping it off. These weight loss masters are more likely to plan their meals, track their intake, exercise, weigh themselves, and have breakfast. It seemed like a no-brainer. If I could simply teach my patients the skills the weight loss masters agree are required to keep the weight off, then they would enjoy the masters' same success. Only they didn't. But I'm getting ahead of the story. In late 2003, my brother-in-law's close friend began what I thought to be a medically unsound program. And my brother-in-law asked me, "Can you design a better one?" It was in that instant that I realized my life was about to change. Unhesitatingly, I said yes. And it was then that I set out to design and found the Bariatric Medical Institute. In our institute's early days, I did what the evidence base said I should. I set a medically significant weight loss target of 10% for everyone who walked in the door, recommended that patients replace 1, if not 2, daily meals with a high-protein, medical-grade meal replacement, had patients keep food diaries, provided counseling with registered dietitians, encouraged and included exercise, promoted breakfast, scheduled regular weigh-ins, provided frequent follow-ups, and away we went. On paper, the patients did fine. They lost weight, and in many cases, they even improved their health to the point of coming off some medications. They generally felt quite positive about the changes they were making in their lives, but they weren't uniformly satisfied. Although they lost enough weight to improve their qualities of life, their behavior changes were often short-lived, and many regained their lost weight and reverted to their old lifestyles over the...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?